Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, The Evolving Workplace, organised by Emircom in association with Cisco. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope everyone is staying safe and taking care of themselves. My name is Ricky Lee Burley, and I will be your host for today. Organisations everywhere are now seeking stronger employee engagement and customer experiences to increase productivity and to be more effective and work smarter. In today's webinar, we will focus on the future of the workplace and how it requires collaboration and involvement of teams globally. To shed light on this, we have our esteemed speakers with us today. From Cisco, we have Mr. Badder, who is a technical solutions architect, and our expert from Emircom is Mr. Samir, a solutions architect manager. Mr. Badder will be speaking first today, and he has been with Cisco for over 13 years. He has played a major role in designing some of the largest access networks in the region. He covers the Gulf region with expertise on working with different industries. Mr. Badder is part of the Enterprise Networks team in EMEA, along with his main duty of helping customers and partners design wired and wireless networks. He takes the responsibility of bridging the channel of communication between the customers and Cisco's EN business unit. Now, before I hand over to Mr. Badder, please note if you have any questions at all during the session, you can send them across to me on the chat, and I will take it up with the speakers during our question and answer session. If anybody is facing any technical issues at their end, you can drop me a word again in the chat, or you can click the raise hand icon and we will attend to you. And now I'll hand over to Mr. Badder to take it forward.
Badder, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar. So, as we said, my name is Badr Latebi. I'm the Technical Solution Architect at Cisco, and we'll walk you through today what we call the evolving workplace, some of the conditions that have drove certain organizations to take a look at their network, take a look at their architecture and IT policies, and ask certain questions whether we can build a more agile design, a more agile network to be able to roll with the punches, as they say, no matter what happens within the future, right? So today's agenda, from my part, will be looking at the current thinking on the next normal, right? What is a resilient enterprise principle, and how does a blueprint look like? And what are the leading themes and use cases for your business? To start with, from a current thinking on the next normal, right? So what is the next normal? It's essentially how will things shape up after the pandemic, right? What form will it take? Are the current networks and IT processes and policies set up in a way to not only cater for the next normal, but also what's going to come in the future as well, right? So there was a survey from Fortune magazine in June 2020 for the Fortune 500 top CEOs, asking them about kind of the highlighted post-COVID thinking and trends. There are, I would say, no major surprises here. Obviously, that not everyone will return to the usual workplace anytime in the near future. Every company is comfortable with a certain percentage. But one thing for sure is that working remotely is going to be a part of every organization. Now, whether that is a large part or a small part will differ on by the vertical or by the customer. Business travel may never return to kind of pre-pandemic levels until a certain time. Obviously, technological transformation should be accelerated, and especially cloud adoption and multi-cloud. And capital, there's a shortage of capital spending from a lot of companies of what they foresee for this year, but the anticipation is on 2021 that things start to kind of revitalize again. So looking at the kind of pandemic and what kind of key technologies it had accelerated, right? It comes at no surprise, but the rate at which they have accelerated is astonishing. Like if you look at e-commerce, it took almost 10 years to increase it by 10% from like 6 to 16. Obviously that is within the US market, but you can also, very similar numbers are seen globally. So it took around 10 years to reach that kind of 10% increase. In the span of 8 weeks, the e-commerce has jumped beyond 27%, right? So what we were doing, or took us 10 years, within 2 months, we've been able to reach it. Obviously, cloud services grew by 30 to 50%. Because they're accessible from anywhere, there is the ease of use, and video conferencing has shot up to the roof with over 30 times use for people to do online meetings and even families to meet together and so forth. Now, one interesting key trend as well is hackers have kind of jumped into this and said, oh, there's a lot of people working from home. There are certain policies not being considered. So perhaps it's room for vulnerabilities and ways to attack and for cybersecurity to be compromised. So we've seen cyber attacks spike by over 600%, right, with the work from home. And that is why an important pillar to discuss within today is how are our security policies aligned with the evolving workplace. We've kind of taken a look at what CEOs were thinking, but what our CFOs and financial officers are thinking during this climate and even what they foresee in the future, right? There are obviously concerns about a new wave or about an economic downturn and financial impact. But one thing that they strongly agree on is that the kind of next normal is going to demand work flexibility instead of kind of being obviously fixed to a permanent place. And that should facilitate better resiliency and agility, right? And this is the key term of today's webinar, is business resilience and business agility. And that happens through technological investment, right? To aid that better resiliency and agility. If we were to look at what kind of major principles, if you are an organization and you say, okay, I want to be resilient, I want to be agile, what are the first things that I should look at and consider, right? And how does a resilient enterprise look like? Today's work obviously is very heavily skewed into working from home, right? Because of the current conditions. Some organizations in some countries, depending on where you are slowly kind of going back to the office, but with certain percentages and government policies. But what we foresee in the future is that it's going to, those kind of 3 pillars of traditional office and locations, it's going to be a certain percentage, around 30%. Again, it varies from company to company. Working from home is going to be a pillar for most of companies. And also on the go, right? Because what we've noticed is a lot of people have had fatigue, work from home fatigue, right? So we're starting to notice people trying to change scenery and working from on the go, whether in cafes or other public environments. But that also begs the question, how can your organization facilitate a consistent experience anywhere that employee goes, but also consistent policy and making sure that if they connect to a public Wi-Fi and use your corporate network, that is as secure as you want it to be, right? So for that, we look at it in 3 kind of elements. So on your left side, you've got your distributed workers and things, and you're going to see the word distributed a lot, right? Because that's how we foresee the next normal. A lot of it will be distributed. So distributed workers and things, whether they're temporary workplaces, branch and campuses once they start coming back to the office, remote workers from home, or even IoT devices, right? What they reach or what they try to use is obviously going to sit in the data center, public cloud, hybrid cloud. And what we've seen a major spike is obviously the SaaS or software as a service. because it facilitates a much easier way to scale and to be agile within your existing environment. VDIs and kind of virtual desktops, there's a lot of interest on those as well, right? In order to bridge these two, those kind of distributed workers and the distributed applications sitting in different elements, some public cloud, some local cloud, we look at having a secure cloud-first infrastructure. Basically work securely from anywhere, collaborate from any device, and for your IT to manage from anywhere, to have visibility on the network, on the applications from anywhere. They can automate from anywhere and have analytics from anywhere. And obviously maximize the experience and productivity of our employees, because what we've noticed is a lot of the expertise nowadays is very focused on the existing equipment rather than a cloud-first infrastructure, a DevOps API kind of world, right? So we do have 5 strategic themes that make up this resilient enterprise, right? The first most important ones are the first 3 you see here: secure remote work, whether from home, return to the workplace, and flexible multi-cloud. The last 2 is zero trust security foundation and end-to-end visibility. But we're going to walk you through at least the first 3. And if it piques your interest as well, feel free to reach out to us so that we can have a more in-depth discussion on the other elements as well. So the strategic themes to empower a distributed work in a cloud accelerated world will be a secure remote work, right? That requires a secure communication and collaboration, secure remote access, whether it's a VPN or a router and so forth. And how do you provision these, right? So zero touch provisioning is of utmost importance, because you cannot really send your IT and support to all these different places. So zero touch provisioning is key here. When we return to the workplace, employee and site safety is important. How do you measure distance? How do you measure the number of people in your venue and so forth, right? How do you facilitate optimized connectivity and capacity, a common policy and segmentation, right? So segmentation is very, very key to all of this. And obviously, to reach a flexible multi-cloud, we're going to look at how do you guarantee the application's performance irrespective of where they sit, right? All of this with an underlying foundation of a zero trust security, meaning we will trust no one before they get into the network. They have to identify who they are through authentication, what they're using, and what applications they're trying to access. So let's start with the secure remote work, whether it be from home or on the go. These are some questions to ask yourselves as an organization, right? Because surely we've asked ourselves as Cisco when this kind of pandemic hit, right? So what are your current remote worker setup, right? Is it secure, compliant, or is it just best effort because, you know, we've been hit with this quickly and we didn't have the time to set up things the way we would securely prefer to set it up, right? Do workers have the same experience exactly as if they were sitting at the office, right? Is their productivity compromised? Is the experience impacted by the household sharing, you know, different connectivity like the kids and family and so forth? Do you need specialized hardware to accelerate the performance of certain capabilities like video conference and so forth? And if an issue happened, how does your IT deal with it? Can an employee open a ticket from their home, and can IT actually access that and guide them to their micro branch and fix the issue? Those are some questions to ask, right? So from Cisco's point of view, to facilitate that kind of remote work, we look at it at kind of 3 stages or kind of 3 tiers. One is essential. This is if you say software only, no VPN client, no kind of specific hardware. We can facilitate that through Duo, which is a multi-factor authentication. So even without a VPN, we can securely connect your employees to your applications, right? You can also add the advanced, which is going a more software-only kind of VPN client, like an AnyConnect client, for example. And for your kind of power users that require really and performance improvements, you can have hardware assistance to improve the WAN speed and eliminate the chit chat in the WAN, right? So you can do that with our specialized routers and with the aid of what we call ThousandEye. The advanced, as I said, is where you use a VPN client, so a Cisco Duo for multi-factor authentication, making sure your corporate policy is extended all the way to home. And that's what we do at Cisco. I'm an employee and Cisco demands that I use this Cisco Duo. This way they're sure that no matter where I access, the Cisco policy is always followed. Cisco AnyConnect facilitate that VPN connectivity. We also integrate with the umbrella so that you have the DNS security and you can protect yourself from the internet, right? And you also have endpoint security. All of that is just one client, right? So even though there are different solutions, it's not like many things that sit on the client. It's a VPN client or even an agent as well. The premium one, as I said, this is if you need hardware acceleration. Feel free to consider any of the Meraki routers or Cisco ISRs. From a collaboration perspective, we've got the Desk Pros and the DX80s, right, to facilitate that a remote work that is exactly matching the experience in the office. Speaking of the office and how to return to the workplace, again, we ask ourselves these following questions with regards to going back to the office. What is the mix of remote work and office work in the future of your company? Is it going to be skewed more towards remote working, or most of people are going to go back to the office, right? How are you thinking about the return to workplace? Is it ready? Does it comply with the government policies for safety? Is the experience common between somebody sitting at home and somebody sitting in the office? Or the guy sitting at home is going to say, oh, maybe I'm having pixelation, I don't hear you well, and so forth. Because this doesn't really facilitate good kind of productivity. How are you going to facilitate expansion and capacity and manage all these networks? The way we look at it at Cisco is these three pillars. Network readiness. This is how you go back to work safely, right? Make sure you have your network ready for it. Your collaboration experience is optimized for this next normal. And then in the intelligent spaces, we're going to look at each of these kind of pillars. So the first one, network readiness, obviously in enforcing network segmentation with Cisco's TrustSec, right? And through ICE, we can very quickly allow visitors to access internet, but not, for example, ERM or so forth, so forth. If you have contractors and you need to change the policies for them, again, it's few clicks on the Cisco ICE or the DNA Center, and you can change your network segmentation and policy and make sure you're secure. You obviously have visibility across the network into everything, all endpoints behaving differently than intended. Any anomalies, you can respond by automatically quarantining those users and devices with a click, revoking access if, say, you're downsizing and so forth, changing access policies immediately. All of that can be enforced to everyone, no matter whether they're sitting at home or whether they're sitting in the office, right? So we need to make sure to have visibility, so authenticate and see all users no matter where they are. Compliance, so secure remote endpoints by enforcing posture compliance. And segmentation, right? And this is the aid with software-defined access or Cisco TrustSec, right? To make sure you have a consistent experience, whether it's a secure remote user or an office. Obviously, Cisco SD-WAN, because you have all these remote branches, facilitates a huge improvement in the experience of the user sitting at home, right? We can aid it with what we call SASE, or Secure Access Services Edge, where we kind of bundle a lot of the security. Instead of it being appliance-based, it will be cloud-based, right? So that it will be as close as possible to the user and facilitates your policies all over the world and as close as possible to the micro branch itself. And there's a lot of optimizations to your cloud applications like Office 365 or AWS or Azure and so forth. You've probably also heard of our recent acquisition of ThousandEye again, as the name suggests, 1,000 eyes. It literally has a lot of eyes within the network itself to let you know about an issue. If there is a disruption, if somebody's sitting at home, right, what we call micro branch, is it an SD-WAN issue? Is it an ISP issue? Is it a network issue, right? Application, data center, or perhaps even the SaaS itself has an issue like the Office 365 or the WebEx and so forth, right? So it's an overarching eye to kind of give you that analysis over or end-to-end visibility on your network. To return to the workplace, some of the strategies that we look at is one, team separation. So team A, team B, and you kind of separate the teams and each one has different policies. Meeting space max occupancy, and that is aided by our collaboration AI. So our screens are not just used for meetings, they're actually used intelligently to even detect how many people are in the room and if they exceed the number of people allowed, right? Obviously, a high percentage of workers continue to work from home, so we want to make that collaboration feel natural between people. And how do you facilitate or kind of ensure social distancing and safety? Well, one, by awareness, right? So we also utilize our screens, our collaboration screens for a lot of the awareness regarding distancing and kind of sanitizing and so forth, and contactless information. So a lot of them they have voice recognition, so you don't need even to touch, so you can through voice commands run and join specific meetings. We also use our DNA spaces to detect the location of people and make sure that there is social distancing within our premise. We highly recommend integrating Cisco WebEx endpoints to provide a complete, safe workplace environment solution, whether with the contactless, as I said, or whether with the WebEx room kits, so that it can detect any capacity management and so forth, right? So intelligent spaces, we've got sensors that can detect multiple elements, how many people are in the room, the presence of people, whether they're there or not, right? Location analytics, all of that can be combined for the work or going back to the office. One element that I would highly stress on as well is Wi-Fi 6, because meetings right now video is not kind of nice to have. It's become nearly mandatory, right? And a lot of it runs over wireless or Wi-Fi. And one of the things that Wi-Fi 6 provides is not just speed, because every standard is faster than the previous one. If you look at the graph here, Wi-Fi 6 provides incredible efficiency and latency, which means much less pixelation or nearly no pixelation, right? So there's a huge difference in the way Wi-Fi 6 works compared to any previous Wi-Fi. So video over Wi-Fi 6 is extremely efficient. So returning to the workplace with Cisco, you've got the density signage, boards, contextual notification, contactless integration, interactions, workplace analytics of how many people are there, proximity between them, room finding and wayfinding, right? Those are all elements for the return back to work. If we look at the multi-cloud, right, certain consideration is whether your applications are performing the way they should, no matter where they are. And for us to be able to do that, we have to adopt a multi-cloud strategy that has a cloud agnostic manner, so that it's simple and cost-effective to operate, deliver application experience, no matter where that application sits, and obviously as secure as possible through securing the workloads themselves. Now, how to build to connect everything back into how to build that resilient network, we have to ask ourselves these kind of questions, which is, what is the target mix of distributed work in the future? Because based on that, you will be able to decide on where to expand versus where to kind of shrink, right? Do you have an optimal communication collaboration infrastructure for productivity? What capabilities would you require across your distributed work environment as you build out the new operating models, right? How do you ensure applications are delivered anywhere optimally? All of these elements we're going to tie, as we said in the beginning, the left side, which is the workers, workplaces, and things, to the right side, which is distributed applications, hybrid clouds, multi-cloud applications, and on-prem data center applications. The kind of way to join these is to work securely from anywhere, right? Through our Duo and AnyConnect solutions, collaborate from any device using our latest collaboration endpoints and WebEx endpoints, manage from anywhere through our DNA Center and our Thousand Eye and the other element. And obviously, through our automation and machine and AI and machine learning that is embedded into all this infrastructure. With that, I'll leave the floor for any Q&A if we may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bader, for that great session. As he said, everyone, we will now be opening the floor for questions for Mr. Bader. I do have a few questions that have come through, but if anybody else has some questions to pose, you can send them through on the chat and we will get to as many as we can. So our first question, Mr. Bader, is how has Cisco responded to the challenges imposed by the pandemic and how is it evolving its workplace?
Great question. So Cisco, just like anybody else, has been kind of hit with this abruptly, right? We actually transitioned very, very quickly because a lot of the kind of underlying infrastructure was already there. It was just a matter of scaling up and expanding that. But it wasn't in kind of a easy thing to do, right? Because Cisco has had to transition 75,000 employees and nearly 65,000 contractors and part-time employees. So a total of nearly 140,000 people like that had to now work remotely, right? So some of the things that Cisco has done is, for example, obviously quickly adopt the secure VPN policy, because this is way we can guarantee everybody connecting securely. But because of the amount of traffic that we faced, we actually had to enable split tunneling so that it's optimized. Most of the traffic kind of splits locally. We expanded, as I said, and built even spun up new hubs in London and in Canada to kind of cater for that added load. We heavily relied on SD-WAN because it provided us with direct connectivity to the Microsoft Office suite, to the AWS platforms and so forth, so that users can facilitate that. In terms of endpoints and collaboration, we've given a lot of the employees the endpoints as well to work from home, and we even donated any additional ones to hospitals and to any of our customers that are in need of those. How we foresee the future and kind of the evolving workplace, right? Some of the things that we're looking at, one is virtual desktops, right? The ability, instead of relying on laptops, especially for contractors and sometimes that carry two, to facilitate and kind of adopt a virtual desktop policy itself. That is one of the things we're looking at. And obviously we're looking at a lot of the elements that have been discussed today with regards to the analytics of the collaboration and going back to work.
Okay, so our next question is, what is Cisco's hardware dues? And, sorry, let me just confirm. What is Cisco's hardware dues, Cisco DNA Spaces support?
So Cisco DNA Spaces is our cloud-based software that kind of takes a lot of the feed from your hardware, be it, mostly it's the wireless, right? So whether you're Meraki wireless is the kind of AirNet wireless from Cisco, and takes a lot of that feed, even if it's 11AX or Wi-Fi 6 or older generations, and kind of analyzes where people are, where devices are, right? Based on Bluetooth, based on Wi-Fi, and it can provide you with a lot of benefits: reporting, density, proximity, notifications if more people aggregate than your policy allows, wayfinding, right? A lot of these services are provided by DNA Spaces. And to kind of close up, we actually worked with DNA Spaces with a lot of our healthcare customers because they, in the midst of a pandemic, they were borrowing IV pumps and respirators between hospitals and so forth. And it was very, very difficult to track where things are and who borrowed what. So we utilized asset tracking through DNA Spaces as well to log that and kind of facilitate a more cohesive way of organizing.
Continuing on the topic of the Cisco DNA Spaces, do they work with Meraki, wireless LAN controllers, and CMX on-prem?
The answer is yes for both. And the presentations will be shared after the event. I see one of the questions.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up our Q&A here with Mr. Bader, and we're going to move forward with our next speaker. So now we will be turning to Mr. Samir, who is a Solution Architect Manager at Emircom. He plays a major role in deciding on Emircom's technical strategy, liaising with vendors on architecture focus, managing the company's engineering resourcing, and elevating team performance through innovative leadership. He has more than 24 years of IT experience, 20 of which he has been with Cisco various solutions, mainly specialized on data centers, enterprise networking, security and service provider solutions. And we'll hand it over to you, Mr. Samir.
Samir, you need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So thanks. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Badr, for giving us a brief about next normal. I understood how you explained the three scenarios and people that need to consider working remotely as well as once they come back from pandemic. Here, I'm going to start again with evolving workspace. By now, of course, we got some sense of what is evolving workspace. All right. So is it just a laptop that's connected using the VPN client? Of course, the answer is no. It is much more deeper. Okay. Evolving workspace is about enterprise altering the business workforce to support employees without the restriction of physical presence. This means enabling your employees with the tools that they need to collaborate, communicate, while ensuring secure access and to be overall productive. To ensure that organizations continue to operate much like it was before. Let me take you through one example of bank. Okay, in banking, workforce typically operates in office environment. Consider the amount of regulations and laws the bank needs to comply with. They need to ensure appropriate securities are in place. In office environment, it is much easier to control information leakage. Employees can be monitored. Customer care phones are recorded, and their endpoints have restrictions, so they cannot save any financial information, right? Now just imagine transforming all of this process to support employees working in distributed manner. And that's what Evolved Workspace is all about. It's no more just remotely logging in. This needs transformation is what driving organizations to invest in digitization. And according to IDC 2020 report, 66% of UAE organizations are investing in creating smart and digital workplace for their employees. so they can remain productive while also ensuring security controls are being followed. To make this delicate balance between security and productivity, organizations have to be ready to go through a number of changes, have to be ready to transform, starting with investment in virtual teams, collaborations, and communications. And transformation cannot just happen like that. It cannot be rushed. There is no one out of the box solution fits for all. Okay, you have to do proper assessment. You have to look at every aspect of your IT, all your applications and security infrastructure. You have to find out the right partner to help you in your journey. You see, it's not just like installing a VPN client and providing remote connectivity. To support such evolving workspace, organizations need to modernize their network. As Badar mentioned about zero trust, okay, I approach something like zero trust network architecture, ZTNA. ZTNA approach operates on an adaptive trust where trust is never implicit and is granted on a need to know list privilege basis controlled by granular policies. Organizations will also have to create new policies for supporting such distributed employees. Also need to provide constant awareness sessions which can bring them up to the speed of the new trends in end user targeted attack. This can be complemented with advanced endpoint protection technologies such as EDR, providing them end-to-end protection of endpoints and the users. The reality is that evolving workspace is here to stay. An organization must aim towards building their infrastructure and business applications that supports it. Evolution workspace is not only about collaboration platform, communication platform, and security infrastructure, but also evolution of business applications and processes. Every organization needs to provide multi-channels for their resources to access its system to work and collaborate. These resources needs to communicate, interact digitally, transparently among each other. And the communication is managed using a business process management tool. While interacting among each other, resources would generate a lot of documents such as sales letters, sales purchase orders, invoices, sales orders, delivery notes, etc. They could also have official letters which needs to be signed and archived. This collaboration is managed using what we call ECM, Enterprise Content Management and Correspondence Management Solutions. While collaborating and interacting, the resources use many business processes that touch and get data from multiple applications and systems. To achieve this, there's a need for applications and systems to integrate seamlessly. And this dictates the need to have a unified integration platform. Having all of this, you have too many applications, servers, databases. Organization needs to make sure that these are up and running continuously with high performance without affecting the resources productivity. To achieve this, organizations needs to have an application performance management tools to monitor all business transactions from browser or mobile app all the way to database servers. This also reminds me Badar discussing about Thousand Eye, which provides us end-to-end visibility. Organizations generally do investments in infrastructure and applications to streamline the work of their resources. But they miss to ensure that resources are well trained on those systems and business processes. Hence, organizations need to plan reinforcement courses for their resources to make sure they're always up to date with an organization processes. This can be done through talent development program, which can be managed through a learning management system, creating online courses and test for their resources. And that's how your enterprise will be ready for evolved workspace. Does this all looks smooth, simple, easy journey? I would say not everything is simple, but yes, there could be some pitfalls. Going through the pitfalls, okay, most important is planning. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Plan is the key. Even when you have very little time, even when there are emergencies, plan and divide your task into smaller milestones. This reminds me one of the recent conversation, and one of the IT manager took an advantage of the current situation where staff is not coming to the office, which allows him to do changes in the office infrastructure without outages as people are not around. Hence, he decided to convert his entire infrastructure, or in fact, upgrade his entire infrastructure to Wi-Fi 6 environment. As he rushed into this decision and changed entire infrastructure to Wi-Fi 6 without any planning, when the staff returned to work, they suffered with stability, disconnections, not able to connect kind of issues. Just imagine how bad that would be. Hence, planning is always the key for the success. Skilled resources. Having skilled resources is not only enough. I would say you always need your executive management support as well as user involvement at the right phase. Customers might think just getting a qualified consultant and a project manager, things would be smoother. However, if these consultants and project management is not backed up with authorities and executive management support, it would be very difficult for them to get internal approvals, getting information from internal staff, and this could delay the entire project cycle. In fact, sometimes this could even lose the interest from an end user perspective. Every project needs to be set with the clear vision, objective, and realistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations can demand for workarounds. And whenever we bring workarounds in solutions, it ended up deviating from best practices and standard architectures. And we consider this always as a risk. And especially if you go live with such environment, you might end up with overall poor digital experience. Just imagine, I mean to say you have, we are talking about this new workplace environment, okay, with employees distributed across the globe. And then we have challenges with the collaboration communication tools. It would be real bad. Moving to the detailed testing. Again, if I have to take an example of evolved workplace where flexibility is offered to the end user for selection of the client devices, operating systems, browsers that they use to access the business applications. It's very important that thorough testing has to be done for all these various types of endpoints to avoid dissatisfaction from the end user at a later stage. Now, As we are moving into solutions, not just the product deployment, okay, these solutions, of course, brings multiple components together, has a lot of interdependencies to meet your business objectives. However, very important to manage those complex interdependencies. And those can be managed very well if you have documented prerequisites for each one of them. You have a staff or experienced partner who have digital library of his previous experience to avoid such pitfalls in current project. Given an example, Cisco Wireless Assurance and Automation, which uses DNA Center and that integrates with Cisco Wireless Controller and also with Cisco ICE. To ensure you get the best outcome from your DNA Center, we need to do thorough compatibility check between the versions that you are running on your controllers and ICE to get fully integrated. Okay, when do you consider your project is successful? Is it just deployment completed? I won't consider that anymore as deployment is considered as successful. Nowadays, it's all about ensuring that end users are adapting to those solutions. Okay, they are able to make use of those solutions to increase their productivity, to ensure the organizations are able to function normally as it was before. Hence, don't forget about end user education. It's the key for making sure that your solutions are well adapted within the organization. Once system goes live, it's all about availability. And to make sure, again, it is successful in terms of available 99.999%, it's very important to have proper tools which can provide you end-to-end visibility and notification system along with processes in place. Again, you don't want your distributed workforce with prolonged outages on business applications and services. Hence, to make your journey simple and successful, you need the right technology partner to support you through each of these various phases of the project, and even after you go live, to support you to ensure the successful deployment. And Emircom is that technology partner who has all the required skills, experience, processes, complemented by the software solutions and various service offering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samir. That was indeed a very informative and insightful session for all present. Now we are opening the floor again to questions. If anybody would like to pose a question for Mr. Samir, you can send it to me through the chat and I will take it forward with him. Our first question, Samir, is what level of data granularity is supported by Cisco DNA spaces?
Okay, so this is very specific to DNA spaces. Madhav, would you like to take that question?
Sure. It depends on what data granularity are we talking about, because there are different aspects within the DNA spaces, but we can go down to the device, down to the access point, down to the user, and if you're asking from a meter perspective, if it's Wi-Fi, will typically be 3 to 5 meters. That's why we look at its zone. Bluetooth, it can be much, much shorter than that, within 2-meter accuracy.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, how does Cisco provide services that keep in place with the budget of limited companies, meaning that the quality of services would vary between large and small companies?
Okay, let me take that question. So Cisco also has a various flexible service offering when it comes to the services. This of course involves with technology partners such as Emircom to do certain partial rollouts. Okay, this allows flexibility to the customers to select where they expect the quality. Okay, so that's the flexibility customer has when it comes to the budget of the customers.
Just a moment, we're just getting some more questions through. Pardon the delay. Our next question is, do you have a demo tool to check this?
Check, just a check what, of course, Cisco provides various demo using even the dCloud, which is a cloud-based demo, which allows you to get demo for, let's say, DNA Center, okay, the various tools that we discussed here in terms of even security products. If we are talking about Stealth Watch, we are talking about secured SDA as a SD access network. So there are various POC tools and also the dCloud demos available that can be done for the customers.
Correct. If you're interested in specific product, let's say the DNA Spaces, because I see a lot of questions, then yeah, you can even go to Cisco's website, like dnaspaces.cisco.com, and you can start for free. You can create a trial account and get 30-day free trial to try out with your own solution or system.
So this will be our last question for the session, but of course, if you do have further questions, you can send them through to us and we will be sure to get back to you and coordinate with the speakers for appropriate responses for those. So the question is, what are the exact Cisco products, part of the recommended security blueprint by Cisco, involved in managing an enterprise hybrid infrastructure?
So the specific products are in relation to the size as well, right? So one of the things we'll also share is blueprint by size and also vertical, right? So smaller kind of micro branches, we have a specific set of recommendation in terms of hardware. We also have medium size, and we have a blueprint for the large enterprises. They have a very different set of recommended hardware. So there isn't a one answer for them all. It depends on where you fit in terms of size.
Okay, very good. We have come to the end of our webinar now. I would like to thank again our speakers for such a productive webinar today. So thank you to Mr. Badr and Mr. Samir as well for joining us and sharing your expertise. Your feedback is very valuable to us from the audience. So after the webinar today, we will be getting in touch with you all for some feedback. And we want to give you, the audience, a big thank you for taking some time out to join us and our speakers today. So please do take a couple of minutes to provide us with your feedback once you receive our request. Also note that we are able to share the slide presentations with you upon request as well. And of course, forward any extra questions to us and we can get some responses back to you. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you. Everybody stay safe and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.